Now it's good to have you join us live on iBrand Daybreak today. Let's dive straight into our focus for today. 2 months after President Bola Tinubu approved the release of withheld 4-month salaries for Nigerian lecturers, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, said its members are yet to receive the salaries. ASU President Emmanuel Oshodeke also said most of its demands that the Nigerian government claim to have met are yet to be implemented. The salaries were withheld when the former administration of Muhammad Buhari invoked a no-work, no-pay policy against some university-based unions that embarked on a strike that lasted 8 months in 2022. Now, regarding the 35% increment, Oshodeke said the 35% increase only applies to senior professors. He said the increment for other categories of workers in our institution is 25%. Now, to have this conversation with us is Taiwo Hassan Soweto, and he's an education rights expert. Good morning, and thanks for having us in the studio. And also, Happy New Year. Yeah, you're the one having us, because actually it's a privilege to have you again.
That's interesting. Happy New Year to you.
We in the studio also say, everyone in the studio plus Josh also saying Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. I'm very much happy to be back here.
Yeah.
And thanks for all you did for education last year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's dive straight into it. So various reports, have been making the rounds concerning this issue. Now, the first one is the presidency is saying it has paid 4 months out of the 8 months, while some are saying they've not received any salary. So what is your position about, this issue?
I mean, the truth is what the ASU president has said. No lecturer, as of today, has received any payment, despite what the president said about 2 months ago. And when the president announced it, he equally hinged it on a condition that the lecturers agree never, to proceed on the strike again. Something which itself is a violation of the right of the lecturers, because what they are trying to do is to ask the lecturers to submit their right to resist conditions that are inimical to their interest within the public university system. And this no work, no pay itself is based on the Trade Dispute Act, Section 43, which, as far as I'm concerned, it's a law that is very, very illegal in a democracy, if I can put it that way. Because what that law says is that you can beat a child, but the child has no right to cry. You could underfund education, refuse to meet the demands of lecturers, completely staff lecturers, with a very low salary. And they keep on having meetings with you, having agreements with you. You fail to meet those agreements. Out of frustration, when they then proceed on the strike to call your attention, then you have a right not to pay them for the period of the strike. So that is a law that completely wants to prevent those who have been beaten in this country from crying. And that cannot be allowed. And that's why I think that what needs to be done actually needs to go beyond, ASU alone. The entire labor movement needs to look at how that law itself, can be repealed. It should not have a place in a real democracy if Nigeria is really practicing a democracy.
All right, now let's take it back to this administration. Does it not feel like this administration is actually, in support with ASU? To me, that's what it looks like. Now, why I'm saying this is because the appropriation bill that was signed on Monday actually see education have, after defense and security, education actually has an higher amount on the budget. So does it feel like this administration are actually in support, of ASU?
No, it doesn't, because when the details of the budget, allocation to education, when you look at it very well, you have to then look at what exactly goes to capital. What exactly goes to those things that can really transform the condition of teaching and learning, and what improvement has been made, to the wages and the conditions of university staff by that allocation. And you realize that there has been really no fundamental improvement. Just like the ASU president said, they have only granted 35%, which has not yet been paid to senior professors. But that itself is a very small amount compared to what ASU has been demanding. ASU has been saying that Nigerian lecturers are the worst paid, even in Africa, not just globally. And that if you want to retain the best brain within our university system, you have to, seriously improve the wages. I mean, as that now, a university professor, the most senior, does not receive more than 400 and maybe 20 or 50,000 naira, per month. That itself is less than the salary of some, PAs to some politicians. So if university professors are earning so much less, than lawmakers, then obviously it means that already, the whole idea of what education should be in a society has already been missed. So that budget, as far as I'm concerned, even though it might be big in terms of the allocation, does not really address the key issues. Of course, we will be doing a proper response to this, later on, during the week. But so far, the old quest for improvement in funding has not yet been met, because when you also look at what the government is saying now, government is talking about a student loan to be implemented this January, which itself, as we have always explained, is an indication that government does not want to continue, to maintain funding, to public university system. At Olabisi Onabanjo University, fees were increased from now 98,000 to over 300,000.
Yeah.
There will be a student congress during the week on the campus and possibly a protest. So when you look at this and then you look at the education budget,
I think some of the admins actually came out to say students do not have a right to actually protest, because I'm actually an alumni of OU. So I don't have the right to protest. And then I'm like, what do you mean? But anyway,
so when you look at those conditions, the hike in fees and co, and then you look at the education budget that you're saying, then something is clearly wrong somewhere.
All right. So when you said earlier that the union entered into an agreement with the federal government, which of course includes that part of the agreement is they not going out to protest, which looks like, as you give us that analogy of you beating a child, but of course the child has no right to cry. Does it mean that the union wasn't so much aware of the implication of signing such an agreement with federal government?
No, there was
which
no,
gave
there
them
was
the feeling.
There was no signing. Let me correct that. There was no signing.
Okay.
The president unilaterally announced that he was prepared to pay 4 months out of the 8 months withheld salaries of universities lecturers for the period of their strike in 2022. Okay. He was prepared to release just 4 months, provided ASU is prepared to submit its rights to strike.
Okay.
And the ASU president responded and said, "We have not been discussed with. They just add this information in the newspaper just like the rest of Nigerians." That was what the ASU president said. I remember very clearly about 2 months ago. So it wasn't any agreement. It was just the president announcing that was the condition upon which he will release those funds.
Okay, so up until now, the funds have not been released.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is that why does this government have the penchant for putting out informations? Is it to incite people, or in this case, incite the union, of which eventually they would not be able to carry out? Because we've seen cases upon cases where informations have been released but ended up as a propaganda. Is this another propaganda by the government on education?
Yeah, obviously, the government tries to, make use of populism.
How do you mean by that?
Oftentimes, you have had how the government have approached the fuel subsidy removal issue, always painting it as if they are doing it on behalf of Nigerians. People who are suffering should just try and bear with them. That was more or less the character of the speech made by the president on New Year Day. So there's that element of populism in the approach of the government, trying to rouse people, even possibly a section of the country against the other, so that they could say, for instance, that it is those who have a car who are complaining about fuel subsidy removal, whereas there are other Nigerians who don't even buy petrol because they don't have a car. Meanwhile, there's no Nigerian who doesn't make use of petrol because there's no electricity, so you have to have a generator sometimes, even no matter how poor you are. So they have this element, and obviously their approach to education also has shown and manifested this kind of approach. We have seen the student loan, we have seen the way they have framed it, and we have described it very much as a scam. And there's a reason why we chose that word, because the President Tinubu is trying to do what we know happens in Lagos, which is that people sell to you in Lagos State, fiction, something that doesn't exist, and you buy it. That is the Lagos
Illegal
situation.
salesman.
They sell a complete fiction to you in Lagos, and you buy it. You buy it, you pay. It's only after that you realize that you have bought complete fiction. And that is the character of the student loan. And they are using everything to push it. And those who are going to be victim of that policy are currently unsure. But some of them even feel that perhaps it can work.
But don't you think that in as much as looking at the analysis you just painted now, as at a few years back and what it is now, going by the inflation rate, don't you think it will make a little difference compared to what it was, rather than we just saying completely that it is an idea dead on arrival?
No, we're not saying it's an idea dead on arrival. Obviously, I mean, if you are making demands on government, you accept whatever is given. But and use that as a basis to even ask for more.
Good.
You don't say no, don't fund education until you give 15%. No, that's not our approach. But we have to continue to insist that there is much more that can be made available to education, because we're also in a race against time. You're talking about a country of a population of 200 million people. 70% of that population are young people below 35. So you are talking at any point in time, over 220 million young people need education. And on an annual basis, the population continues to increase, exponentially. And we have enough resources and wealth to take care of even those increase. But you don't have adequate economic planning, that ensures that, that there's a way to address even not just the needs of the present population, but even the needs of the population in the next 10 years. You don't have that kind of forward-looking leadership, because you have a capitalist ruling elite that is just there to steal the money and run with it. And that is why we think that we need a socialist revolution. We need a new approach to governance and a new government based on the working people that takes, education, healthcare, not just as something, not just as a product of political speechifying, but really as an element of nation building, as something that, is a minimum that has to be done by any government, to ensure that the nation is built up and enlightened the set of people. But that is only possible with a new way of running things, socialism, because we have sought capitalism in this country for how long? Over 6 decades of it. And look at where we are. We have turned to a country flowing in milk and honey. We have turned this country into a desert. Look at what happened last year, on Christmas Day in Plateau, with the massacre of people. All of these things are connected, because you have to ask yourself, why do you have this kind of mindless massacre and killings and kidnapping and crime all over the country? In a way, they are equally an indication, of a situation whereby you have young people without anything at all, no education, no jobs, no future. Such a society would continue, to, get itself immersed in all kinds of social crises. And that is why education is very important.
Thank you, Razan, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you.
All right, iBrand Daybreak will continue in just a moment. Please stay with us.